Well, good evening, Malden. How are you tonight? Just want to say happy Halloween, and I hope all the kiddies had an enjoyable time. I know at our house we've had quite a few kids coming down and getting some candy. So my wife and daughter are there right now and still passing out some candy, I'm sure. So tonight we're going to be talking about the veterans. And well, I'll just start off by introducing our guest, and then I'm going to share some things of, I did some, I don't know if you want to call it investigation or whatever, but gosh, Malden really is full of a lot of history. But tonight our guest is Kevin Jarvis. He's a man who has a lot of different titles. But Kevin, thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you.
And,
thank you for
you want to
me.
just let the folks know who you are a little bit, and
Sure.
then.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Jarvis. I'm a third-generation Malden veteran. I was born in Malden and graduated Malden High School and enlisted in the Marine Corps while I was still a senior at Malden High School back in the 70s, during the Vietnam era. As a third-generation Malden veteran, I grew up with my family, my father, my uncles, all my neighbors, all my friends' parents were World War II veterans or Korean veterans. So it wasn't uncommon. It was natural. One of the parents was in World War II. So those were my heroes growing up. It wasn't the baseball players, maybe a couple of hockey players, but it was the World War II veterans and even World War I veterans. My dad was commander of the VFW a couple of times and Grand Marshal in Malden parades on 3 or 4 occasions in the last 50 years. And I remember one time he would bring World War I veterans out of the soldiers' home, including Leo O'Neill, who was the first commander of the Malden VFW, a World War I veteran. And he put me in a convertible around 1960-something, 62, 63, and I'm driving in the Veterans Day Parade with the World War I veterans, and I have a picture of that at home.
Well, that's kind of neat. What kind of a convertible was it? Do you
You
remember?
got me. I was about 5 or 6 years old, so it was a convertible, and it
Your
was.
hair, the wind was flying through your hair.
It was pretty cool, and those were big parades in those days. So.
Yeah, yeah.
We have the Veterans Day Parade coming up on Sunday, November 11th. We'll be having a memorial service in front of the American Legion on Pleasant Street, not far from City Hall, at 9 a.m. on Sunday the 11th. And the parade will kick off at 10 a.m., starting at the American Legion and then circling up Mountain Ave and back down to Salem Street past the high school and ending in Malden Square in front of the new teen center. So that'll be pretty interesting. It's going to be a little bigger and better than it was last year. A few more marching bands, musical groups, and hopefully maybe about 1,000 people in the parade.
Excellent,
so
excellent.
It's really going to be something.
Excellent, very good. So just share with the folks just a little bit. I have written down here, you're the Veterans Services Officer.
Right, and that is a title, once someone becomes a VSO or Veteran Services Officer, we get trained by the State Department of Veteran Services. Each city and town has a Veteran Service Officer. Any town that has 12,000 or more residents is required to have a Veteran Services Officer. Obviously, Malden's close to 60,000, so I have plenty of work to do. There are some towns that may only have, say, 4,000 or 5,000 people, and one Veteran Services Officer may cover 2 or 3, 4 communities in some instances. And a Veteran Services Officer, we have 351 communities in the state. There are probably 320 or so Veteran Services Officer. They're also called, once they're designated and trained, Veterans Agent or Director of Veteran Services. So it kind of depends on the community you're in. All Veteran Services Officers, Directors of Veteran Services, have to be veterans themselves. It's a requirement. It's mandatory. And it only makes sense because hopefully the veterans we're dealing with will confide in us any of their problems or needs that we can help them with, knowing we were a veteran also.
Sure. And it probably helps with, you know, I'm sure it does help them to be a little bit more comfortable knowing
Right.
that
They're not talking to some computer or just putting in information. They're talking to a person who's been in the military, been overseas. I was overseas for 2.5 years on 3 different continents, so, you know, extremely hot weather. I know what it's like, you know, being sent overseas as a young 18, 19-year-old like most of our veterans are.
Well, good. It sounds like all those different titles, you're probably a pretty busy guy.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if anyone ever needs anything, on the City of Malden website, you just go down the departments to the bottom, under department heads, click on Veterans Services, and my information will be right there. There's a lot of good information there from the state, from the Department of Veterans Affairs, mostly from the Department of Veteran Services, the Massachusetts State Department of Veteran Services. And they have a new website that's recently come online, I think around July 1st. And you can go on that, and I'll read it to you because it's fairly new. So you just go on massvetsadvisor, one word, .org, and you click on that. And depending on what city you're in, you'd put in your zip code, and if it was Malden, my name would come up. If it was Everett, it would be Joe Hickey, or whatever community you're in. You can also hit the drop-down boxes, educational benefits, services available, medical benefits, GI Bill educational training, whether it's vocational or regular college-type university training classes. Today, anybody getting out of the military, I tell them to go right into college. Right now, depending on your zip code, and that's how they gauge the GI Bill benefits, a veteran getting out of the military can qualify for nearly $2,500 a month to go to school. And if they go to a state school, it's free tuition, free books. They don't have to pay any fees at all. And they get $2,500. Obviously, that $2,500 can pay for their rent, their food. They literally wouldn't have to work while they're going to school 4, 5, 6 classes, doing a full course load, and not having to worry to work 20, 30 hours.
Now, is that something new, Kevin? Like
well,
recently, or has that been from day one?
That's post 9/11 GI Bill. When I get out in the 70s, in the old days, I think I only got $300 a month. But you know, classes were cheaper then. But I didn't get free tuition, free books, or fees or anything. So, but it was still good. I used the GI Bill. I collected nearly every penny I was entitled to get my associate's and then my bachelor's degree. So it's a great deal. I went to 4 different schools in a couple of different states, including Bunker Hill here in Charlestown when I get out of the Marine Corps. So there are about 500 veterans going to Bunker Hill right now, many from Malden.
Excellent.
So it's amazing.
Excellent, excellent. So we were talking before the show, and you know, I just did a little search to see what was in Malden.
Oh,
and
history.
I came up with 5 things, and you were saying that there's a lot more, probably a lot of history in Malden. So just share with the people. Everyone probably knows this stuff, but maybe not. I find a lot of very, very interesting. Bell Rock Memorial Park, which I know, gosh, really dear to your heart.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the recent event down there you completed, but it was been a park since 1905. And it said that this site commemorates Malden's veterans atop Bell Rock, upon which Malden's first settlers erected a church bell which hung in a frame for 30 years to call colonial worshippers. Also, it was the first meeting house, stood on the west side of the rock from 1649 to 1658, and the second meeting house stood there from 1660 to 1730. It says that the park includes the Flag Defenders Monument by Bella Pratt in tribute to soldiers and sailors of the Civil War.
Right.
That's a tremendous monument.
Oh, I don't know how
it
many.
stops me in my
I don't know how many
tracks.
pictures I've taken. It's
Yeah.
best to take it in the morning. You know, I get on there early, take a photo.
It's
really
gorgeous.
nice, yeah.
It's gorgeous. And then the tablets, the memorializing Malden veterans of the Revolutionary, Spanish, American, and First World Wars. And then there's the arch that's dedicated to the veterans of World War II. Now this is, I don't know how recent this information is. It says
Yeah.
it's been restored and additional panels have been added to memorialize some 8,100 residents from across the city who served their country during the war.
Right.
And that was unveiled and dedicated on June 26, 2010.
Right, and I think there were over 1,000 of us at that ceremony.
Yeah.
The original arch was just basically the stone formation, the arch, with the names of just Ward I residents who served in World War II, including my dad. So when they made it a citywide monument, and we have nearly 8,300 names, we've added another 100, and we put all the names. But of course, when we did it, we did 9 panels ending in Z, but we left the last panel open for 18 months, nearly 2 years, knowing we missed people. You know, clearly you can't get everybody, and sure enough, we even missed my mother's first cousin who retired from the city of Malden. He was in 7 battles in the Pacific in the Navy, and we missed him. Passed away a few years ago.
Huh.
So we added another 80, I believe 81 names on Flag Day as
Yeah.
part of the Flag Day ceremony. And we had the last panel put up the night before, and it went out great. Flag Day was really tremendous this year with Chief Holland getting the Patriot Award, the last panel being dedicated, and the regular Flag Day ceremonies, which are always good, but
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
enhanced this year with
Yeah, it was
great
really
weather
it
and
was
a big
spectacular.
crowd. Yeah.
As I said to you, it was just, I was in awe when you walked down the street and they had the big hook and ladder
Oh, yeah.
and just the gigantic flag hanging
Yeah.
over the park. Was
And the
just,
blue skies and the sun and
And then I see
and
there
the
you were,
firefighters and police.
there you were, planting the flags in the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that was
You can't
just,
have enough. You can't have too many flags
No.
on Flag Day.
Never, never, never. That was just spectacular. You
Yeah.
did, you and
Yeah.
I think it was Peg Crow and
Peg Crow, yeah, she organized
there's
it.
a few of you that
Yeah.
just did a
She
an
carried
amazing,
on. She carried on
phenomenal
from
job.
Ellie Cushing and Mayor Christensen when he was Ward 1 councilor, and she's carried the torch forward.
Phenomenal
So,
job. I
yeah.
hope to see it stay at that level or even
Yeah.
more.
and it's not just
know,
a Ward
throughout
1
the years.
ceremony. So the whole city of Malden come out next year on Flag Day. because
Yeah, you hear that, Malden?
the
Come
weather-
out
The weather
on
was
Flag
great.
Day.
It's really interesting.
It is. It
And
is.
and the Civil War Monument basically is what I refer to it as on the top of Bell Rock. But it has the names of Revolutionary War veterans. And down on the World War II Monument, we have nearly 8,300 names on that, including 250 residents of Malden that were killed in action in World War II. 250. That is absolutely amazing. There were 10 on the last panel. So at the Flag Day ceremony, I read off the names of the 10 killed in action that were being, dedicated that day, and how they died, what branches of the service were they were in. They were shot down over Japan or Germany, or the ship was sunk in the Sea of Japan or in the Mediterranean or off the coast of France by a Nazi U-boat or a Japanese submarine. Amazing history there. I can go on and on. I have multiple relatives on the World War II monument, and like many of you, and some of you who are still with us, luckily, World War II Greatest Generation, your names are on there. So
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
Amazing, amazing.
That's great. I looked up also about the, I don't know if this ties into veterans necessarily or not, but I thought it was just interesting. It's called the Old Parsonage, the Judson House in parentheses. It was built in 1724. It's the oldest structure in Malden, a colonial-style house located across from Bell Rock Memorial Park. It was the original meeting house of the town. So I don't know, Mayor Christensen, maybe you can move City Hall back over across from Bell Rock Park. It might not be big enough right now, but
You might.
but it's just interesting. For 186 years, it was home to ministers of Malden. Among them, Joseph Emerson, the great-grandfather of Ralph Waldo Emerson, and then Peter Thatcher, who was Malden's pastor during the Revolutionary period. And Thatcher is believed to have authored the Malden Declaration. just really neat. At the time of the Civil War, this is what I thought was really interesting. I hope this is fact. It says at the time of the Civil War, this house served as an underground railroad to stop sheltering fugitive slaves.
I've read that before myself. So
yeah,
it is amazing.
It's really neat stuff.
And speaking of slaves, we also have about a dozen members of the first black regiment formed in the Civil War, the 54th Infantry Regiment, including a couple of white officers and about 10 troops, blacks and some former slaves, are buried in our Forestdale Cemetery. So there's a lot of history. A lot of history, and
it is.
there are about 10,000 veterans buried in the city of Malden.
10,000.
I've identified about 8,000 right now, and I'm still trying to identify some Civil War, Spanish-American War, World War I veterans. It's a daunting task. We just keep plugging away at it. It's constant work in progress, and sadly, like today's obituaries in the Boston Globe, there are 11 residents or people with Malden ties in the obituaries, 2 veterans, and one was a former POW. Mr. Mariani, who died Sunday, and then Mr. Malden, who'd been on the fire department. You know, these guys are incredible. Mr. Mariani came to my attention about a year ago. He was starting to slip. I helped him and his sister out. I never asked for anything. He was 87 years old, just turned 89 2 weeks ago. And spent 2 years in a German prison camp in northern Germany. Captured on the beaches of Anzio in '43 and liberated in '45. Amazing.
I know you were talking to me also about the show. You just mentioned it now about you go on the Ancestry.com, is it?
Yeah, I'm an amateur genealogist, so
it's amazing. So you don't have like a team behind you
well,
running around and doing all these things.
Have my assistant Martha Ferratusco, who I'm constantly throwing projects at and keeping her busy. And it's her first year, and she's really done a great job. So we work well together. When I'm not in the office and you need anything, you can always call my office or email me. But you can call 781-397-7139. And I'll either answer or get back to you, or Martha Ferratusco will answer and help you out, take the initial intake information, and we'll see if we can help you with any benefits.
That's great. Now, do you talk a little bit about that, the research? I mean, do you contact family members, or I mean, what is it?
Well, I deal with right now about 50 different veterans in the city of Malden as clients, including some grandparents raising their grandchildren for various reasons. Single mothers who are veterans raising their children. So it isn't just veterans, it isn't just young veterans coming back, although I do try to help them. There's a lot of older veterans, World War II, who are on a limited income, and I try to help them with some assistance, monetary assistance, fuel assistance, medical copay kind of assistance. It's a whole formula that the state has, and a lot of people are on fixed incomes. Have lost their jobs, so we try to help them as best I can. Like any state agency, though, the Department of Veteran Services requires a fairly lengthy application. You have to divulge everything about your income, what assets you have, what your needs are, and your ability to work, or if you're disabled or something. And then we'll process it. We'll send it into the state, and they either authorize or ask for 1 or 2 more documents, pieces of information to sustain the application. And then we'll either grant or deny benefits. I prefer to grant benefits, but sometimes because of the income level, a single veteran or widow would have to make like $1,850 or less a month to qualify. And then there are other different factors, how much the rent is and so on and so forth. But even if someone only gets on a fixed income and they're only to get $100 or $200 a month, that's 4 bags of groceries a month or something, and it just gives them the peace of mind. I'm going to make it, and gives us a good feeling, to help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so, but you don't make the you don't make the final decision. I mean, you're getting it from above.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I'll approve my end of it. I'll send it into the state.
Sure.
They review it for authenticity. They verify all the information. Some veterans don't qualify for veterans benefits.
Yeah.
As crazy as that might sound, they may not have served enough active duty time. They may not have been in during a wartime. People that served during a wartime, like World War II, Korea, Vietnam era, or the current, or the first Gulf War and the second um, the current wars with Iraq and Afghanistan, Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, those veterans need to have less active duty time than a peacetime veteran to qualify. And then some former National Guard or reservist, whether it's Army, Marine Corps, Navy, or Coast Guard, if they didn't have the requisite active duty time, they may not qualify for state veterans benefits. But they would still qualify as for veterans state, Federal Department of Veterans Affairs benefits, the VA. And one thing that people are really confused with, I'm an employee of the city of Malden. I work under the rules and regulations and Mass General laws of the state of Massachusetts, but I am not affiliated with the Veterans Administration. Although I can contact them, I have some phone numbers. I've filled out most of their applications that anybody would need to fill out, and I submit those for the veterans. A lot of times I'll do the applications for the older veterans or the widows, such as burial benefits and things of that sort. But the younger veterans, I try to refer to our veterans organizations, that's Disabled American Veterans, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Jewish War Veterans, or the American Legion. Specifically, or particularly if they belong to those organizations, it would probably be better to have that organization act as their power of attorney and advocate while the VA application for medical benefits or some other benefit is pending. Because the VA right now, as many of you are aware of, well, for instance, over the last few years, the VA nationwide would get 250,000 applications. And in the last couple of years, because of increased applications of veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and Agent Orange disease from Vietnam, the Veterans Administration has received like nearly 2 million applications a year, and their staff hasn't increased tenfold. So the applications sometimes might take a year for service-connected disability benefits or a widow benefit, death compensation benefit. So it's a little confusing, but if anybody goes on that website, massvetsadvisor.org, you can kind of read through some of this stuff. They have a lot of it in real short 2 or 3 paragraph narratives to explain different kinds of benefits you're eligible for. So,
That's great. It sounds, Kevin, it sounds like, I don't know, like, you know, growing up as a little kid and everything, and I'd hear a lot of the guys that, you know, the older men that were in a lot of the earlier wars, and, you know, I mean, what, I don't want to put you on the spot necessarily, but it always seemed like the country really wasn't taking care of our men and women a lot.
Yeah, I noticed that about 20 years ago. I used to take my father to the VA. He's a disabled American veteran. And
it sounds like things are better, though.
Oh, they're incredible now.
Good.
There's Mr. Mariani that I'll use him again. We just lost him Sunday. I took him into the VA last August. As a former prisoner of war for 2 years, he was entitled to a lot of benefits he didn't know about. So within 6 weeks, the VA fast-tracked him because of his prisoner of war status, and he got 100% service-connected disability. Could have got more, but that's what the cutoff is. That's about $3,000 a month, tax-free, for those that are injured in combat or sustain injuries, even if it's not combat, even if it's during peacetime. If they get hurt in a helicopter accident or, you know, a vehicle accident, an explosion that may have gone wrong in training or something, they're still an injured veteran, and the VA will help and take care of them. So, so the VA took care of Mr. Mariani. We went in for an 11 o'clock appointment. They called his name at 10:30. I can't remember the last time I've gone into a doctor's office and got to see the doctor half an hour early. It's usually an hour later than your appointment. The doctors, I mean, they're the rotating staff from Beth Israel, Brigham and Women's, Mass General are coming into the VA to assist, to work as primary care physicians and specialists, whether it's in the audiology department or some other department. It's just absolutely amazing. They're like top shelf.
So that's wonderful. It's you bring these guys into the doctor
Sometimes, yeah, if I can. I mean, I can't do it for everybody. You know, but, you know,
that's good.
Or I mean, the ride is great too. The ride will take people in and bring them back, and a lot of people use that. There are different you know, programs for people for transportation if they can't just jump on the T.
Sure.
Go into the Veterans Administration Medical Center, and Jamaica Plain is where I usually go. That's initially where they do some of the testing, or they work with their primary care physician. Now, for anybody that wants to apply for veterans benefits, you don't have to have been injured in combat or even on active duty. You can still apply for veterans health benefits by filling out a VA form 1010EZ. You could just Google that and bring it up and kind of fill it out online. It's a form fillable document, and then bring it in to me. I'll review it, and we'll mail it into the VA. Sometimes it's based on income. Some people aren't going to qualify if they make too much money. Other times it's based on whether you were injured in the military. Or, I mean, we have plenty of people that go overseas. They're not injured in combat, but they're either they're exposed to different environmental hazards, explosive devices, tropical diseases that we simply don't have in the U.S. anymore. They're exposed and come down with things either there or later on when they come back to the U.S. and they need treatment. And so if you're on active duty, make sure if you're injured or hurt or receive any medical care, it's well documented, and get your medical records when you get discharged from the military. I have a copy of all my medical records. So,
what if they say somebody doesn't have access to the internet, or they're not comfortable going on the internet? Could they call your office and get that
1010EZ form?
Can they get that from you?
Sure. I'll even mail it to them.
Good.
And in some instances, they can come in, or I'll go to the house. I mean, I have a lot of people that are either because of their age or disability, kind of housebound. They don't get out too often. And so I'll get down and visit them, and I'll do the application right at their kitchen table with them, have a cup of coffee, and they feel more at ease than trudging down to City Hall in the rain or snow or hurricane and trying to get the work done there. So I'll be glad. I went to Mr. Mariani's house. I went to numerous veterans' homes. Sadly, sometimes it's only for a short period of time because it's the end of their life, but do everything we can for them.
That's great. That's great. Well, we can't talk about veterans and all that kind of stuff without bringing up about the Malden Armory.
Well, yeah.
I think,
now the YMCA.
Yes, now the YMCA at 129 Mountain Avenue. And it's amazing the information you can get off the internet. But I found this was really neat. The Malden Rifles, Company L, 5th Regiment, Massachusetts Volunteer Militia. They all celebrated the 25th anniversary at the dedication of this Victorian interpretation of a fortress. And it says that the building housed officers and men's quarters as well as a rifle range. And then in 2006 it opened up as a state-of-the-art Malden YMCA.
Yeah,
What do you know about that?
Well, the Malden Rifles, the Massachusetts Volunteer Militia is what it was called until about the end of World War I. Then it became the Massachusetts National Guard. My grandfather was a member of the Malden Rifles. He was a member of that unit, served at the Malden Armory, and in 1916 was activated, and in 1917 was activated for 6 months and sent to the Mexican border with General Pershing's troops to quell the bandit raids that were coming across from Mexico into the U.S. side, and Pancho Villa and that kind of stuff that we've all read about. I had no idea my grandfather was a World War I veteran, along with his brother, Danny Lawler. My grandfather was Joseph Lawler. And I had no idea, and I was reading about the Malden Rifles, started doing research, and my grandfather was a member of the Malden Rifles. And there's a monument dedicated to them. After the Mexican border incident, they came back to Malden, and they bivouacked at Amherst Park, up off Upper Highland, just after the reservoir. And there's a monument there where they dedicated to them, where they bivouacked for like 3 months before they were shipped to France to fight in the trenches against the Germans.
No kidding.
And yeah, it's a lot of history. Yeah. And you'll see at the YMCA there's a couple of monuments. There's about 17 names of Malden veterans, including Corporal Trafton, which Trafton Park is named after in Maplewood. These 17 men were killed, members of the Malden Rifles, killed in Germany in World War I. As well as there are another 5 or 6 names of Malden National Guardsmen who were killed in World War II, right outside the YMCA. A lot of history in Malden.
It is. It really is. The What else? The Salem Street Cemetery. I'm sure you
Yeah.
have a lot of information about that. It
Yeah.
says it's the second oldest cemetery. It was purchased in 1832. It contains the graves of, and maybe it's different now, maybe you've discovered more since this, but it says it contains the graves of two Revolutionary soldiers,
Yeah, and a colonel from the Civil
Captain Joseph Cheever and Michael Niegels.
War. Nagel, yeah.
Is that, sorry,
Yeah.
Nagel, yeah.
Yeah, I have a list of some veterans that are buried in there. There's probably a couple of dozen or so. I don't have all their names with me now. There are over 4,000 veterans in Forest Hill Cemetery. There are 5,000 to 6,000 buried in Holy Cross Cemetery. Because even if someone's not from Malden, once they're buried in Malden, they're my responsibility.
Yeah.
I try to get a flag on every grave. Last year I put out 8,000 flags, and I think I could have used another 300 or 400. So I'm getting there. Next year I'll put more out.
Sure.
And the Boy Scouts, my volunteers, and the middle school students from Salem Wood, I got 100 of them to help me put flags on the graves for Memorial Day, as well as some VFW Legion members.
That's great.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be representing the Salvation Army. I'll volunteer my people to come and help you if you'd like.
I got
you
your
know?
number now. So.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll be soliciting other volunteers as well. I'll try to put something out a month or so in advance. Boy Scouts have been great. Everyone's been great. However, our veterans organizations, the membership has dwindled, as we all know. When my dad was commander of the VFW in 1980, they had about 1,200 members there. It was either the first or second largest post in the state of Massachusetts. They still have, a few hundred members, but again, I don't know, the younger veterans aren't joining the groups, and I think it has something to do with, us veterans, until we hit around 40, we kind of don't really, we're kind of just doing our thing, working, raising a family, and so on. And we won't get too melancholy about our service in the military until we get a little bit older, and that could be part of it. So hopefully we'll see an influx of the first Gulf War vets and the recent veterans joining the veterans organizations in the city of Malden.
Very good, very good. Well, listen, let's take a little break right now. There's a video, Francis Matuccio.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's his uncle, I believe. Is that the video?
I was watching it for a minute, but I didn't take any notes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my Uncle John.
So his
Okay,
Uncle John, there's about a 4-minute video.
Yeah, he's 93 now.
93 years old.
He was one of the first to land on Omaha Beach.
One of the first to land on Omaha Beach.
Amazing.
So there we go. We'll just watch this video.
Right. My name is John William Matuccio. I'm 89 years old. In a few months, I'll be 90. I served in the 336th Engineers Combat Battalion. I went to Fort Devens, and from Fort Devens, we went to the debarkation center in Boston, Massachusetts, and we got on this small ship. It wasn't a ship, it was a boat, the Shawnee. And from the Shawnee, we left the United States, and we ended up in Pontarddulais, Wales. From Wales, we traveled to England, and from England, we went to the different parts to perform our duty as amphibious engineers, renamed to the 336th Combat Engineers. Well, from there, we had taken all amphibious landings, hitting the different beaches and going ashore and doing what we were supposed to do. On June 6th, 1944, we were all put together on the big vessels, and off we went to the beaches, the different beaches that were made out to the different countries that had to hit certain areas. We had the Omaha Beach, Red Beach. And from there on, we went through, from the beginning of France to the end of into Germany, the Elbe River. We crossed most rivers in Germany, the Rhine and the Seine and whatever you want to call them. And we ended up putting the large bridge, the Elbe River, to join in with the Russians and into Berlin. But the Americans, they have a heart. And you got to give them credit for that. I think that when you talk to anybody, they have an idea of what the veteran went through. You know, he didn't have an easy job. I mean, when you're here in this country and you're taking training, well, at weekend you can go home, but we depended on letters to see how everything was going back home. And when it came time to go and hit and take out an empty field of mines, and they had, not only did they have the mines there, with our mine detector we could detect the mine, but they had chewed up metal that they threw all over the whole field. And your mine detector used to pick up all the sounds. You didn't know whether it was a mine or a piece of scrap iron. So that was another thing that was very dangerous. I mean, we had to clear ammunition dumps, food dumps, gas dumps. We had to keep roads open. Then we had to repair. And that wasn't an easy job. Work, there was 24 hours a day work. There wasn't no sleeping too much at that job. Oh, we were glad to get home.
Hey, we're back again. Still here with Mr. Jarvis, Kevin, and that was quite a clip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's,
My uncle was at Normandy also.
Yeah.
My Uncle Victor.
It's quite a thing. I personally myself, like I was saying, I was going to sign up for the Air Force, be a pilot, but because of my glasses, my vision, I wasn't allowed. So
Yeah.
I was a stubborn young boy, and you know, at that time they weren't drafting you, they weren't forcing you to go in. So
Right.
I turned around and walked out. But anyway, we're talking about just a lot of the history in Malden, and talked about the Salem Street Cemetery, and I know you were saying that there's some veterans in most of the cemeteries, if not all.
All of the cemeteries.
In all
yeah.
the cemeteries. So.
Except there's one small cemetery up on Lebanon Street. It's an old Jewish cemetery. And most of the people buried there are young people, like around 20 or infants. And a lot of the stones were in Hebrew, and I wasn't able to determine that there were any veterans in there because it's a younger type cemetery. They're now restoring that cemetery. It had fallen by the wayside, and now they're fixing it back up. So that's the only cemetery in Malden that didn't have a veteran, only because there weren't older adults buried there.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't know that at first, so I didn't even know the cemetery was there growing up.
Huh.
But we have St. Mary's Cemetery up across from Amherst Park, the veterans in there. I have relatives in there. Bell Rock Cemetery down by the Malden River. There's about 40 Revolutionary War veterans buried in there. And it's amazing. I actually was lucky enough to have General Kondrachuk, retired Army general, who works at the Mass National Guard Museum out in Worcester, write up a whole story about the Malden militia from the early 1630s up through the Civil War, the Massachusetts Volunteer Militia, the Massachusetts National Guard, who was stationed at the Armory in Malden until I believe around 1996 or something like that. Then they moved to Melrose. So he did up a whole 15-page report about the history of our Malden veterans from the militia days right through when the Mass National Guard moved from Malden to Melrose. And a copy of that went to the Malden Public Library, and I have a copy of that in my office. It's amazing. It was an eye-opener to me, and of course it talked about the Malden Rifles that my grandfather was part of. I never knew that as a kid. And they left his name off the World War I monument in Dever Park. He lived in Edgeworth. His brother's name's on there, but his name wasn't. So,
It's on there now, though, right?
no, no, no.
Oh, it's still not on there.
I know where he is. He's buried in Forestdale. So, but
Very good.
some of the things I'd like to talk about
Yeah,
briefly
yes.
is what do VSOs do? Like I
Yes.
mentioned before, Veterans Service Officers, we are not the VA. We work for the city or town that we represent at, like Malden, city of Malden. There are some up on the North Shore that may have 4 communities. But, so basically, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 115, started right at the end of the Civil War to help veterans coming back from the Civil War that needed assistance. Primarily, awful lot of wounds and amputations during the Civil War, as you all know from Gettysburg movies and so on and so forth. So the Chelsea Soldiers Home was opened, and a lot of the veterans were taken care of up there. And then Chapter 115 kicked in to assist veterans and their families, their widows, and their children. So, but that started right at the end of the Civil War. A lot of people don't know it. Veterans in Massachusetts are very lucky. A lot of states don't have state veterans benefits. For instance, we have a couple of state cemeteries. We have the National Cemetery in Bourne, Cape Cod, where any veteran can be buried. And any veteran that has the requisite active duty time and has lived in Malden for 5 years or more may be eligible to be buried at Forestdale Cemetery in the veterans section there. So, but we're very lucky in Massachusetts because I have friends all over the country I was in the military with, and I've checked their state veterans benefits services, and it's not much. Not much at all. So we're very fortunate. So basically at the start of the Civil War, this was formed in the state of Massachusetts to help our veterans. But state local leaders wanted to recognize service in the armed forces by providing essential benefits to the men and women, both the living and deceased, who had borne the burden of military duty. So now every city and town in Massachusetts is there to help their veterans. And I'm fortunate to have this job. I was appointed in 2010 by former Mayor Richard Howard, and Mayor Christensen has reappointed me. And I'll stay as long as they want me, and as long as I feel I'm helpful. As a third-generation Malden veteran, my heart's in the job. And even in 1929, when the Great Depression hit, my grandmother's 2 brothers were World War I veterans, and my great-grandmother needed assistance. And I found a little 3x5 card in my office where City of Malden gave my great-grandmother assistance in 1929. So
That's neat.
and other family members as well, right through Vietnam. And so don't ever be embarrassed to ask for help. If you're a veteran, you deserve benefits. I have people that are afraid to come in my office and ask for help. Don't be afraid. You paid your dues. You were 18 years old like me when you joined the military. And basically when you're a young 18, 19-year-old join the military, you basically give the U.S. government a blank check with your name on it that they can cash in at any time. Lucky enough, I came home without being injured. But a lot of people come home either psychological wounds, physical wounds, or injuries that catch up with them later, or diseases that take effect later. For instance, Vietnam veterans, there's a very disproportionate ratio of Vietnam veterans, much higher than the general population, with diabetes and some heart conditions. And they believe those are attributable to Agent Orange exposure and other exposures during the Vietnam War. Otherwise, what would explain that? So if you need help, you come see me, and if I can't help you, I'll point you in the right direction to someone that can help you.
Now you say that to come see you, because I know we talked a little bit. Unfortunately, Kevin doesn't get a list of the veterans.
Right.
He has no clue really who's a veteran or who isn't.
Exactly.
Unless they come to you and tell you. Correct.
And basically, I can only help veterans that are residents of Malden currently. So if they move to Melrose or another community, I have to refer them to the veterans agent in those cities. But even if a veteran just moved here a week ago from another community, they could be eligible for benefits in my office. Now, I strongly recommend any veteran that lives in the city of Malden to bring in a copy of their DD-214, their separation document. It was from 1950 on, it's called a DD-214. It's a discharge document. Prior to 1950, World War II vets and so on, they received what's called a separation document, like my dad. Bring in a copy of that. I'll file it in my office. I have file cabinets full of discharge documents from Malden veterans going back to the outbreak of World War II. Nothing prior to that, World War I or anything, but I do have some 3x5 cards where World War I veterans or their family members, their surviving spouses and children were given benefits, like my family. So, but
Well,
please,
continue. Yeah,
yeah,
continue.
please try to call my office if you can, or send me an email so I can set up an appointment. To do a full-blown application, it might take an hour, hour and a half, and I have walk-ins. I had a dozen people in my office today, and I was trying to get work done and had to stop and help them. So I strongly recommend people call to make an appointment, unless you just want to come in for a quick minute or two bit of advice. And if I'm not busy, I'll be glad to stop what I'm doing and help them, or have my assistant help them. So, but you can always email me. That's a great way, because an email is better than a phone call. I'll have an email, and it'll stay right on my email directory until I respond. Sometimes those little phone message things get buried on the desk under others. So,
Sticky notes right there.
we all have our strong and weak points. So, email's the best, but please try to make an appointment if I can help you. So, like I mentioned before, we're not the VA, but I have inroads and contacts that work with the VA every day. I can help you with your VA applications for any benefits, whether it's medical benefits or even, in some sad cases, burial benefits. And even just those veteran markers at cemeteries, installation of those for your loved ones that served in the military.
And you do some, I know that you do, you've done with us, I assume that you've done with other organizations. You do some collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
which
I
is
have,
which
I
is
have
a
to lean
wonderful
on
thing.
everybody, because I can't be a one or two person band doing all this. I have to lean on TRICAP. They help a lot of veterans.
Sure.
The service organizations, the Kiwanis, the Rotary, they help veterans. The church organizations, just civic organizations in the city. Sometimes people only think of veterans around Veterans Day and Memorial Day because you're busy with your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every day for me is Veterans Day. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
And for some of you, a lot of you it is too. So I understand that.
So what do you, what do you, we still have time, but I do want to get it out there, Kevin. What can just the regular Joe out there, the regular person watching us right now, is there anything they can do? What can we do as a community to just be there for the veterans? Because,
Well,
they serve that country,
I know a lot of people,
including yourselves.
yeah, a lot of people want to help veterans, and what they tend to do is they give me clothing. I don't need clothing. Most of the veterans that I'm helping are kind of well established, and some are too proud to take clothing unless it's something new.
Yeah.
And Tailored for Success, Elizabeth Hart, who has the business here in Malden,
Great
has
organization.
has been given brand new suits from, I believe, Gentleman's Warehouse,
Yes.
and has given me authorization to recommend 12 veterans who are in job searches. They must be unemployed looking for work, and I will refer them down to her office on November 12th, the day after Veterans Day. But you have to come and see me and qualify so we can get you fitted for a new suit to help you with your job search and
That's
interviews.
That's
you know,
dynamite. I've had, hopefully she don't yell at me, Elizabeth, if you're watching, but
Yeah.
her and I have had conversation. We actually, we're going to try to attempt to get out there with shoes. She's
okay,
got
yeah.
a large donation of shoes
What I-
also, so we're trying to get out there to hook up with the
Yeah,
veterans.
what I do sometimes, people want to give me money or something. I say, look, best thing you can do for me, like Comcast, they gave me some money. I used it to buy $20, $25 gift certificates at Stop and Shop, so I can give it to my most qualified veterans or their widows to go to the store and buy something. I also used it to buy things to to put in care packages to send to our troops overseas. So, along with other Malden residents that do this each and every year. So I recommend if someone wants to donate $25 or $50, a couple of gift certificates from Stop and Shop, bring those to me. It's easier than cash, and I'll make sure it gets in the hands of those that need it the most.
Dynamite.
So, and then a lot of people come for. Comcast was great last year. They had a little fundraiser at their office, and boom, next thing you know, I had $350 in my office.
Great.
And gift certificates.
That's great.
So I do want to kind of go over a few things just for a couple of minutes
Absolutely.
that I probably should have done at the outset of the show.
It's okay.
But, it's always good to start in the beginning with the beginning.
It's all
but,
right. We forgive you.
Exactly. Again, not all veterans qualify, but a lot do. So if I can help with anything, we can talk about whether someone's eligible in my office. But the state of Massachusetts believes that we, the state, the city and state, city of Malden, state of Massachusetts, owe the veterans benefits and services. And that's the mission statement. Basically, we can help with state benefits, annuities. If a person has 100% service-connected disability, the state of Massachusetts, and not other states, will give them $2,000 a year. I believe it's on August 1st and February 1st. So those veterans that have 100% service-connected disability, hopefully most of you are getting that. If you're not, come see me. I'll fill out the applications for you. Bonuses. Current war veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts are eligible for a $1,000 welcome home bonus. Some states don't have that. So, and if you go on subsequent deployments, because sadly a lot of our troops are going over there 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I have a cousin, my cousin's son's been over there I think 5 times to Iraq and Afghanistan with the special forces after serving in the first Gulf War. I don't know how many bites of the apple our troops can take, but that's what's happening. So then for subsequent deployments, it's a $500 welcome home bonus. So I dealt with one yesterday. Someone didn't put in for it, and then their brother hasn't put in for the $1,000 and $500 subsequent. So they're going to come in my office, fill out the paperwork. I just review it for, make sure it's all filled out properly. And it's mailed into the state of Massachusetts Treasurer's Office, Mr. Grossman, and the state will cut a check for the welcome home bonus. And those are important.
Yeah.
I mentioned cemeteries before. The Chapter 115 benefits. Again, the application is needs-based. It's income-based. You know, some people, if they make too much money, they're not going to qualify. But come in anyway. You might qualify for medical-only co-payments or something that I can assist with versus fuel assistance if your income's a little too high. So don't think you don't qualify because you're on the border or make a little too much. You still might qualify for something. Educational benefits, the GI Bill. If you are a veteran or you have any veterans in your family, tell them to enroll in 2 classes at a community college. If they don't think they can make it, they can do it. And once they get in there, they'll start going full-time and getting that GI Bill money, and maybe their life will go in a completely different direction than they thought it was going to go. Like, for instance, me. You know, when I went to Malden High School, I never thought I was going to go to college. I didn't need a language. I didn't need algebra. Well, I did when I went to college, and I'm glad I took it. But I had a good, strong foundation going to elementary school, junior high, and high school in Malden. So I was very fortunate, even though I wasn't the best student back then. I can also help with employment. I have contacts with the state unemployment office and career source office, a vet rep that I deal with directly, who's getting called from employers daily and has companies coming to his office. It was in Everett, it's now in Chelsea. But these employers will come and you can go submit your resume. He'll help you with job searches. He's unbelievable. His name's Dennis Pellegrino, and he works in Chelsea. I have all his contact information.
Is there a, speaking of that, I thought I read somewhere that actually the state or somebody will actually pay to hire a veteran.
Yes.
In other words, say I need a
break.
janitorial worker.
Yeah.
You know.
Give me a call tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a couple of good candidates who might be interested.
I will. But the Salvation Army wouldn't actually have to pay.
Well,
yeah, explain that.
There could be different grants, but one thing they're really pushing now is, and I don't have all the information, but if a veteran's been unemployed for, say, 6 to 9 months, a company could get a $6,000 tax break by hiring that veteran. If a veteran's been unemployed for, say, 18 months or more, the company could get a $9,000 tax break. So you employers out there, if you need someone, think of hiring a vet because you can get a tax break and a good employee that doesn't need supervision.
That's dynamite. That's fine. Thank you.
So, so the employment issue I can help with, employment, some training grants. If I can't do them, I'll point you in the right direction because there are numerous organizations that will help veterans. Housing services. You know, Malden, we're lucky with Malden Housing Authority. They're great, and they help a lot of my veterans. They have if you're a veteran in need of housing, you can apply for Malden Housing The regular list, of course, but there's a veterans list as well. Motor vehicle benefits. Some people can qualify for special license plates. There are tax exemptions, property tax exemptions for some people. The assessor's office will give a tax exemption to some veterans, widows of veterans, depending on what service-connected disability the veteran may have had. And we have a lot of veterans, men and women, nowadays. So, and a lot of them are taking advantage of that tax break that they deserve. Again, the Soldiers Home have helped quite a few people get in there. There's a woman veterans network we can assist. I think maybe 15 to 20% of our troops going to Iraq and Afghanistan are female, as well as a lot of the other support staff in Kuwait and Germany and other surrounding countries assisting. So a lot of women veterans out there, and they need assistance as well. And in the old days, we thought of just veterans being men. That's not the case. I have female relatives on the World War II monument going back to World War II, so we'll take care of all veterans. But we can help, the VA can help homeless prevention. They have outreach services, emergency shelters to provide safe housing for the evening, transitional housing if they're in some sort of program temporarily till we can get them permanent housing. We have those programs. And of course, veterans and their families are given preference for the state-aided public housing through the local housing authorities like Malden. So those are just some of the benefits. That's under the State Department of Veterans Services. The VA, they'll cover VA healthcare benefits, like I mentioned before, that Form 1010EZ. Veterans with service-connected disabilities, they're, depending on the disability, they're put in different priorities, from 100% down to 10%. VA pensions. Some widows and veterans might be eligible for pensions if their income is below a certain level, let's say $1,200. It's not an exact number. Say they're getting $700 Social Security, we might be able to assist them to bring up to $1,200 or thereabouts. Education training courses. There are vocational training, HVAC, truck driver training. You don't always have to sit in a classroom with 5 books in front of you taking notes feverishly. You can get in there and get your hands dirty and get some great training and make some good money. VA life insurance, burial memorial benefits. That's one of the jobs I have to deal with. Reserve and National Guard also have special programs for their members. Educational benefits, for instance. Transitional assistance. Independents and survivors, widows. It isn't just veterans that I assist. I help a lot of other family members. I can help with VA claims. I can help do appeals, survivor benefits for spouses of veterans. And if you want to try to get your military medals and records, I can help you apply for those as well. So if you need any assistance, just give me a call, email me preferably, call anytime, leave a message, and I'll seek out what you need and try to get it for you.
Well, very good. Kevin, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
No, thank you, and
Remember
thanks for helping all our...
And,
we sat, had lunch together.
That's right.
Great icebreaker.
You've worked with my wife on a few different cases, so...
well, thank you for helping all our residents, not just veterans, but help the veterans a little more.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, folks, we got 30 seconds left. Please, 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 if you can't do anything else, come to the parade. There's a lot of energy and time.
Come out and support our veterans.
To that parade, so come out and support them. And that's about it for now, Malden. Have a wonderful night, and God bless you.
Thank you.